Good Sunday afternoon, friends. Eric Hulkran here, rocking the Grand Rapids Rampage hat. Wanted to check in really quickly. I normally don't do stuff like this on the weekends. I kind of cut it off on Friday and go social free for a couple days. However, I had a keynote on Friday, and a gentleman in the crowd asked a question, and I answered the question, but I don't think I gave him what he wanted, so I wanted a chance to kind of roll it back as video will allow you to do and answer the question. So I was in a space where I think a lot of people didn't have context on me, so I did a little bit more biography before we kind of got into the meat of what we were doing. And so that included telling stories about being in radio and at WSNX specifically. And one of the favorite mythologies to tell about myself and the team was the time that we were able to book Justin Bieber for right around $1,000. It's a pretty great story. It's not 21 days later that he's getting $750,000 to do essentially the same thing. So it's a fun story to tell. But his question afterwards was, how did you know to give $1,000 to Justin Bieber? And I answered and I said, look, in the world of concert promoting, $1,000, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, given what we were spending on a show like that. And if it does work out, right, you're a hero. But that's not, I don't think that was super helpful to him. So I want to kind of expand on that and say that it actually is pattern recognition. I had spent a lot of time in radio and done a lot of things like this. We had done an event with Mandy Moore at Rivertown Crossings Mall that was huge. We had done an event with the guys from 98 Degrees at a record store that used to be where the Five Guys is at the Beltline and 28th Street, right? So we've done a bunch of stuff like that. We had done work with NSYNC. We had done work with Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears. I obviously knew what happened to the New Kids on the Block. I was aware of Leif Garrett. I knew what the Partridge Family was. I had seen an episode of the Monkees, and I clearly knew what the Beatles were. Right? So pattern recognition of what these things look like, and then you can kind of go, I see what's happening here. The other thing is, my belief is all great business decisions are kind of this hodgepodge of skill, luck, and timing. And they all mix together and amazing stuff happens when you do that. And then when you have awesome relationships on top of it, makes it all the better. And so I happen to have a friend named Eric Olson who was working at Def Jam at the time, who was kind of giving me the play-by-play of what was happening when they brought Justin into the United States. And it's 100 people, it's 200 people, it's 500 people. And much like the stock market, right? You either jump in then, or you're kicking yourself for not getting Apple stock. Or it's March of 2018 and you're like, that Bitcoin thing should totally jump. Nope, you should not. It's not time to jump on that, right? It's the law of innovation, right? The diffused law of innovation. The early adapters here, mass here, laggards there. So how do you get to be in the early phase? And here's the challenge of being in the early phase. Sometimes you can get burned. On the same token, we were able to bring Ed Sheeran here off selling out 2 nights in Madison Square Garden. You would think, oh man, that's a home run, right? It was not a home run. People in Grand Rapids were not ready for Ed Sheeran, so they didn't show up. So sometimes being too early can burn you, but pattern recognition helps you get to that space and understand what's happening. And that same thing holds true in the social space, what we're doing now, right? If you spend a lot of time in Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and here on LinkedIn, Snapchat, all of that stuff, you start to recognize patterns. So when a new app or a new feature shows up, you know what to do with it, or at the very least, how to test it. And that in the social space is the most important in my mind, is understanding what's happening and know how to test in there to know what works. So to answer your question, which is what I wanted to do, pattern recognition is how you do that. Pattern recognition is how you know to give $1,000 to Justin Bieber and see what happens. Hope that's helpful. Have an awesome weekend, guys. We will talk to you tomorrow. Take care.